If you go to Trafalgar Square, you will of course see it dominated by Nelson's column, but there are other statues, and just behind it there's this one of Cunningham, and he's a very interesting story.
Andrew Brown Cunningham, or ABC as he was affectionately known by both crew members and colleagues, started his naval career during the Second World War at the very end of the 19th century. He was the most senior officer on a destroyer in the Mediterranean during World War One, but it's World War Two where he really comes to the fore of history. He was basically in charge of all the Royal Navy's forces in the Mediterranean during World War Two.
Cunningham, therefore, was very much the epitome of an imperial officer, and you therefore may think that he would be somewhat set in his ways, playing it safe, but you couldn't be more wrong.
Picture the scene. The enemy navy in the harbour, thinking it's safe from naval attack, because technically it is. So, the enemy gather together torpedo aircraft that fly in low and hit the fleet as it's sitting there, apparently safe in harbour, destroying huge amounts of naval warfare potential. This sounds like the story of Pearl Harbor, and a way it was. But more than a year earlier, ABC sent Royal Navy torpedo airplanes against the Italian fleet in Taranto.
During the evacuation of Crete, where British forces had to leave under constant German attack, it was down to ABC to make sure the Royal Navy stood there and got all the troops out. They were under constant Luftwaffe attack, and some of his officers were panicking. This was the point where he made his famous quote, "It takes 3 years to build a battleship. It takes 300 years to build a tradition."
But that's not the best story about ABC. In 1941, he knew he had to engage the Italian fleet again. However, the problem was he was based in Egypt, where there were lots of ambassadors around the world, including Japan, which at that stage was neutral, but everybody knew he was reporting back to the Axis forces. So, what to do? The answer was, go have a game of golf. ABC made sure that he had a round of golf at the same time as the Japanese ambassador. And of course, what man was going to have one of these sporting matches and go off and fight a battle? But it worked. He immediately jumped into a jeep, got onto the fleet, went out, met the Italian forces, and destroyed them. So it was a wonderful bit of subterfuge, with a sense of British humour to it as well. ABC, therefore, is one of these men who could do all kinds of different types of conflict on the sea, adapted to new technology, and he was well rewarded for it.
This picture is from the Yalta Conference. And who's standing directly behind Winston Churchill but good old ABC? He was also important diplomatically too. Eventually retiring after the war, he was made a Viscount and lived out his life in happy peacetime. ABC, therefore, is another great example of somebody who's been forgotten by history but shouldn't have been. If you like this, as always, you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter as @HistoryGems, but there's also the book, The Busy Person's Guide to British History. See you soon.